Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings to the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We now are in the Calamus section, and we come to this little poem, When I Heard at the Close of Day. Now, my assumption is that you were with us already through all of the preceding poems in Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass at LearnStrong.net, our Talks with Walt playlist, starting with the inscriptions and working all the way up and including the little poem we just did, Recorder's Ages Hence. There are certain understandings of certain texts that do go together, and I think it's fair to ask that you read Recorder's Ages Hence and When I Heard at the Close of Day together. They are in fact kind of a unit unto themselves, and they, taken collectively, are very controversial. This is one of the more controversial poems in all of Leaves of Grass, especially if you read the poem as sexual in its understanding of friendship or love versus somehow platonic. I'm going to leave it up to you to decide how exactly it is that you're going to read this set of lines. Let's turn to Norton's quickly and hear what Norton's has to say about this set of lines. Norton's will tell us that both this poem and the preceding poem that we just looked at were originally indicated with Roman numerals 3 and 5, and Roman numerals 3 and 8, respectively, in a series of 12 poems, apparently so numbered in order to commemorate a single episode. This poem remained unchanged after taking its present title in 1867. Now, lots and lots of biographers have tried to get a sense of what's going on here historically in this poem. It's apparent, according to a number of biographies, that sometime in the middle of February, around the 18th in 1856, that the National Intelligencer, a newspaper out of Washington, D.C., produced a review of Leaves of Grass, which was somewhat favorable, and so Whitman sat down to write this poem. Now, I want to point out right away already that many have seen this as the closest thing we've got to Whitman's attempt at sonnet writing. Now, of course, we've said a lot about sonnet writing at LearnStrong.net. You can find those lectures elsewhere. But we've commented on Shakespeare teaching Keats, the great poet that Whitman loved so much, about this use of the when, then construction in sonnets. We think about Keats's "When I have fears that I may cease to be," then, the end of the poem, standing on the shore, I stand alone in thing to love and fame, to nothingness do sing. We're going to see something very similar happening here. All right, let's just read the poem and then we'll annotate after we've read it. When I heard at the close of the day how my name had been received with plaudits in the capital, still, it was not a happy night for me that followed. And else when I caroused, or when my plans were accomplished, still, I was not happy. But the day when I rose at dawn from the bed of perfect health, refreshed, singing, inhaling the ripe breath of autumn, when I saw the full moon in the west grow pale and disappear in the morning light, when I wandered alone over the beach and undressing, bathed, laughing with the cool waters and saw the sunrise, and when I thought how my dear friend, my lover, was on his way, coming, oh, then I was happy. Oh, then each breath tasted sweeter, and all that day my food nourished me more, and the beautiful day passed well, and the next came with equal joy, and with the next at evening came my friend, and that night, while all was still, I heard the waters roll slowly, continually up the shores. I heard the hissing rustle of the liquid in sands as directed to me, whispering to congratulate me. For the one I loved most lay sleeping by me under the same cover in the cool night. In the stillness, in the autumn moonbeams, his face was inclined toward me, and his arm lay lightly around my breast. And that night, I was happy. Now, we've commented on the brilliance of the echoes that happen, and this genius poem takes us obviously back to another poem that we have to begin with, and that, of course, is going to make us think about Song of Myself. Let's go back to that passage, Song of Myself, that we commented already on, but I want to remind you of it. Do you remember passage 50 of Song of Myself? There is that in me, I do not know what it is, but I know it is in me. wretched and sweaty, calm and cool, then my body becomes. I sleep long. I do not know it. It's without a name. It's a word unsaid. It's not in any dictionary, utterance, symbol, something it swings on, more than the earth I swing on. To it, the creation is the friend whose embracing awakes me. Perhaps I may tell more outlines. I plead for my brothers and sisters. Do you see, oh my brothers and sisters, it is not chaos or death. It is form, union, plan. It is eternal life. It is happiness. Now, we have, of course, said that Scooby snacks are an illusion, and yet what a fond illusion, and that is to say happiness. We've said that Whitman was really influenced by Thomas Jefferson in that brilliant essay of Declaration of Independence, that 2 times he will use the term happiness, right? The pursuit of happiness. So we'll begin now with his observation. And again, notice, when used 7 times, and then we'll get to the 2 thens, right? When I heard at the close of day how my name had been received with plunks in the Capitol. Again, the very fact that his name did not appear in the original Leaves of Grass, but by the deathbed edition, it would be there. And notice that the idea of his name matters in regards to how it's spoken of. Notice it is the Capitol, as we've said already. Still, notice the use of that word. It was not a happy night for me that followed. In other words, there's things that matter to me, and there's things that don't. By the way, this plaudits is a word rarely used in Leaves of Grass. We saw it, for those of you who are remembering, as an echo in Song of Myself, number 33, right? And else, when I carouse, notice the alighted verb. Or, when my plans were accomplished, to, again, a number of these whens, right, accomplished, still, I was not happy. Taking us, of course, back to passage 50 of Song of Myself, right? But, now, this is the reverse of the sonnet form. Let's point out that, of course, we have the turning as we talk about it in line 9, normally, of a 14-line sonnet offering. Notice the but here. So it's almost like the sonnet form is inverted. But the day when, notice more whens, I rose at dawn. He loves this idea of dawn. We're going to see this in our study of Song of the Open Road, from the bed of perfect health. Do you remember that he uses this term perfect health in the very first lines of Song of Myself? I, now 37 years old, in perfect health, begin hoping to cease not till death. Notice, in perfect health, refreshed, singing. We're going to hear about this singing thing, and of course I Hear America Singing comes to mind. Inhaling the right breath of autumn, the fact that it is autumn and it's not spring or it's not summer. Some of our readers have made a point of, when I saw the full moon, notice we're in the evening, in the west grow pale and disappear in the morning light, that is to say, of course, the dawn. When I wandered alone, again, we're back to this idea of the Odyssean journey, over the beach, and we know that Whitman himself loved to do this, Whitman as person. He loved to take these walks along the beach and even recite Homer, so it's interesting the word wandered gets used. And undressing, bathe, we've said that he loved to go for his swims in the ocean. Laughing with the cool waters. Just pay attention to the way the word laughing gets used in Leaves of Grass. And the waters we'll come back to here with the liquid and sands in a bit, right? And saw the sunrise. And when I thought how my dear friend, notice no comma there, my lover was on his way coming. I told you it's a key word, right, for all of our reading of Leaves of Grass. And then the use of the word oh twice. Oh, then I was happy. Oh, then each breath tasted sweeter. Notice all of the sensations that will be played out of the 5 senses. Tasted sweeter. All that day, my food nourished me more. And the beautiful day passed well. We think, of course, of the famous U2 song, Beautiful Day, right? Passed well. Again, the word well in Leaves of Grass is always significant. And the next came with equal joy. And with the next at evening came my friend. And that night, while all was still, we're going to see the stillness a few lines later, I heard the waters roll slowly, continually up the shores. Again, this is a motif we're going to come back to, Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking, and elsewhere, right? I heard the hissing rustle of the liquid and sands. Hear all these S sounds? By the way, the word hissing is an interesting word. 5 more times it's going to get used in Leaves of Grass. We'll point it out, especially in the drum taps section, right? As directed to me, it's as if nature is corresponding with him in some way, whispering to congratulate me. Note the irony. He says, I don't really care that I was being congratulated by some newspaper out of the Capitol, but boy, oh boy, when the waters and nature were congratulating me, then I was happy. And why? Why was he so happy? What is foundational to his happiness? For the one I love most lay sleeping by me under the same cover in the cool night. Now, today we read this and we read it and we go, what's the big deal? But I cannot emphasize how radical these lines are when Whitman will produce them. Nobody had written poetry like this. Under the same cover, in the cool night, in the stillness. Notice all these pronouns, prepositions of in the autumn moonbeams. His face was inclined toward me. Do point out, this is not her face. This is his face, right? So there is, again, the way that this is going to be read in Whitman's day. Are we talking about a sexual kind of encounter? Are we talking simply about a friendship, platonic encounter? Remember, Melville's Moby Dick puts two men in bed. And of course, they awaken to the horror of who the other one is to become, of course, closest of friends. So the idea of being in bed together doesn't have to be sexual, but certainly there is a reading of this that makes this a possible sexual encounter. His face was inclined toward me, but he's asleep, right? And we're going to get to this brilliant poem, Sleepers, later. And his arm lay lightly around my breast. I told you guys when we did Song of Myself, passage 5, I told you we'd be coming back to this idea of the breast. And then the dash. And that night, I was happy. 5 times in this poem, happy gets used. This is why we sometimes call this the happy poem. And this leads us now, of course, to 2a in our messages. Well, what is it that he's arguing? That true love, obviously, is the only true source of true happiness. It isn't recognition. In the end, it is the love of friendship that really matters. Go back to what we said now to 3a about the Iliad and Kleos and Time and what it is that everyone's fighting for and why Achilles by book 9 of Iliad is not sure it matters anymore to him. And we're having here in Whitman, of course, the same kind of question. What is it that I really care about? I guess in the end he says, I don't really care that some people liked my poetry. What I care about is when I was able to spend some time with the one that I loved, my friend, right? Now again at 2b, we've already commented on the sonnet writing, but at 3a, I want you to hear that when, then construction, and it will take us back to his study and our study of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Go back to what I say in those opening lines of the general prologue and the way in which it's constructed around that when, then construction. Shakespeare clearly learned a whole bunch about this in the sonnets that are those when, then sonnets. And obviously I already quoted for us with Keats. And the way that Keats learned it as well. I think that there is a direct connection between Chaucer to Shakespeare, Shakespeare to Keats, and Keats to Whitman. And I think that the only next step after that from Whitman is, as we have said, to the great T.S. Eliot in his 4 quartets. And we've commented on that elsewhere as well. Finally, at 3b, how are you going to own a poem like this? Well, I think it's fair to ask, when was the last time that you were truly, genuinely happy? And did it have anything to do with a pal? And if it did, then is it possible that you already understand what Leaves of Grass is trying to help you understand? That the only really important thing is the love for a pal and the way we can exchange that. Thank you.